Welcome to the Fail Forward podcast. The purpose of this podcast is change the negative stigma around failure into a positive. Failure is only a negative if we do not learn from it and we give up. Welcome back to the Fail Forward podcast. Today I've got Sal on, and Sal helps over 50-year-olds get in lean, fit condition. He'll explain that probably in better words than me in a second. But the reason why I got Sal on this podcast is we met recently, and he is a super fit, very, very lean guy who is completely committed to fitness and well-being. And this is something that I've put into my life in the last 2 years. And part of the Fail Forward is showing everyone how I implement different things since I lost it all. And one of the biggest things is me spending time on my fitness and health. So welcome to the podcast, Sal. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Good. So tell me, because I don't think I did that justice then. Tell me, what do you do?
So I'm an expert in helping men over 50 get strong. So I work more towards the strength side of things than sort of the lean side.
I see. So I didn't explain that well, but I think you got what I meant. So why over 50 and why is it important to you?
Oh, there's probably three different little mini answers. I think that when my father turned to 50, he had a lot of health problems. He had like 2 heart attacks. He got cancer. Luckily, he survived all 3. But, you know, your dad, you kind of look up to him as this indestructible person. And I remember one day looking at him in a hospital bed with tubes going out of him, face like all swelled up. And I thought, you know, what a change really from this big, you know, as I said, invincible guy to this someone who's really struggling. So I think that affected me on a deep level. I think also, secondly, you know, my first client was in his 50s. So he was a good guy, Neil. He had like a bad shoulder. He had like a bad knee. He had a bad back. He was overweight. And I was a young PT at that time, maybe 26 years old. And I was just looking at this person thinking, God, there are so many things that I can help this guy with. And I remember that I worked in a company where there were lots of different other PTs, and they didn't want to work with a guy who was over 50 because, you know, those guys were seen as problematic with too many things that needed to be fixed. But I'm someone who really likes seeing a problem and trying to fix it. So it gives me a lot of motivation and joy to see someone going from a very bad position, should we say, into a very good position. And I think finally, in my industry, guys over 50 aren't really serviced. You know, my industry is targeting people in their 20s, in their 30s, people looking to get lean. And, you know, once you hit 50, you're kind of close to that cliff edge. You know, that's where, you know, cancers, diabetes, heart disease, all those different things start to rear their ugly head. So that demographic really needs a lot of help, and a lot of specialist help. And that's where I fit in.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, because my dad had a heart attack and cancer and diabetes, all of the above, very, very similar. And that was from late 40s. He was, I think, 48, 49 when he first had his heart attack. And he's luckily, touch wood, he's still alive now. He's a bit bulletproof, really. Or I wouldn't say bulletproof, but he's very resilient. But one thing that's helped me do is inspire me to be fit and healthy, because I'm like, my dad's been an inspiration in many ways, but also it inspires me to go, okay, that happened to him at that age. So what about me? Okay, I have the same genetic makeup as my father. So, but you know, we can be generational chain breakers, can't we? So, what inspired you? Like, when you got into the fitness industry, like, what's your journey been like? So you left school, and then were you always into fitness? How's that been for you, and how did you get into it?
So weirdly enough, I wasn't actually really into fitness at school or through university. Actually, I think when I graduated about 2004, I wanted to be an officer in the Royal Marines. So for about 3 years, I closed down my life just trying to get in, but unfortunately I wasn't able to make the grade. And then by that time I was around about 25, and I needed to make some money. So I got a job in the city, like people do, you see, get some good corporate money. But at the same time, I didn't want to let go of my sort of military aspirations. So I was also joined the Parachute Regiment Reservists, even though I'm really not good with heights. So I spent a year trying to get in really, really good shape, because you've got to go through a selection process even to get your beret, because those guys work with the SAS. So at that time, I spent a year trying to get into the paras, but also I had this city job, which I was neglecting, and I was, you know, going for long lunch breaks and, you know, not doing particularly well there. But after about a year of training, I got to the level, I got my beret, I got the, you know, the best recruit award. And then I had a choice. it was either go to Afghanistan, which they wanted me to do, but a guy in the troop before me actually, unfortunately, he trod on an IED and he died, and that kind of affected me. Or it was go back to the city, and my parents wanted me to do that, but I could see that it was affecting my physical and mental health. I could see that my waistline was starting to expand. Lots of drinking, late nights, high stress, and I had to make a decision. And there's a saying that a salary is a drug that makes you give up on your dreams. And I was kind of like, well, I'm getting paid a good salary here. If I don't jump off this train now, I'm stuck here. I'm stuck with that lifestyle. And despite what my parents wanted to do, I quit that job. I used some of the money I was paid off to do a PT course, and that's how I got there.
Wow. That saying, I've not actually heard that before. No, but it's a great saying, because you're right. And what is it that you think about the kind of the hamster wheel of work, of being in a corporate company? What do you think? Why do you think that is, usually gets people in over drinking, overeating, and all that kind of stuff?
I just think it's not a very, should we say, positive environment. And I think especially, I was speaking to some of my clients because they do work in those jobs, especially as you get paid more money, there's so much more politics and backstabbing, and people want your job, they want your promotion, they want, your bonus, whatever it is. And I think, money is one way that you keep people in a bad situation. I don't think most of those people would do the job if they didn't get, the salaries that they were offered, if that makes sense. And you have to find a way to blow off steam. And that way to blow off steam, especially in the UK, is to have a few beers at the end of the day. And then it just becomes a mess of, late nights, beers, going out for meals with clients. And I think it's very difficult to break that habit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely, and it's highly stressful because I feel like I was never in a corporate job, but I ran a business, and my business was my stress. It was my excuse almost to go, okay, I'm going to eat shit today, or I'm going to drink shit today, or I'm going to just be generally unhealthy because I'm stressed out. So, do you think there's like a mindset thing where people feel like it's almost like when you're young and you do something well, you get given a sweet, and it's like when we grow up, we do something well or we work really hard, and then we go, our sweet is our junk food, or is our going out and having a few beers, or getting on the packet, or whatever it is. That's our justification. Do you see a correlation there?
Yeah, I think there's some self-medication, to get through a situation. Being drunk, or eating food is a way to raise your dopamine levels. I think that's definitely there. But also I think in lots of jobs, there's such a time pressure. I know lots of people who don't have time, or say they don't have time to go out to have lunch, or they finish very late in the evening, and going home then cooking a lovely meal is not something that they have the energy to do. So they'll go to the pub, pick up food, and then go home. So time pressure and finding a release to the stress that you have in the day makes food and lifestyle habits way worse.
Yeah, no, agree. So you come out of you get your PT course, you're ready to go. So what was life like then? Because it's a quite crowded market, isn't it, being a PT?
Yeah, I think it wasn't very motivating when I was doing the PT course, because they used to tell you that like 80% of you won't last a year, because
Wow, that's a huge stat.
Being a young PT is ruthless because you don't get much help. You've got to do your marketing yourself. They don't teach you how to do the marketing. You've got to do the selling yourself. They don't teach you how to do the selling. And then, people are trying to take money for rent for the gym, but also there's so much competition. And, if you're talking to someone that you shouldn't be talking to because someone else is trying to get them as a client, it's very, very dog eat dog. And I used to remember, I'd go, into the gym maybe 5 a.m. I'd do my clients for like a couple of hours. Then I'd sleep in the cupboard, not cupboard, but in the back room, come out, do some more clients. And then we found that, we could sleep on the sunbeds. So the sunbeds were always occupied by different PTs having a sleep on the sunbed. So it's like, it was,
What,
on the sunbed, you just close if it's a lime sunbed, you close the roof of the sunbed, whatever it is, and have a nap. But it was mad in terms of, the long hours you had to do. There's no on-site training. You're just thrown out there. And that's the weird thing. I had this client who was in their 50s, and I was wildly ill-equipped to work with that guy. I mean, I think I got an A+ for effort, but the reality is I didn't know how to help him. So it's a very, sink or swim environment. And sometimes, unfortunately, if you're the best marketer and the best salesman, you survive even if you're not the best coach. And that's why my industry is in a little bit of trouble now, because you'll have this YouTuber with 1 million followers, but the stuff that he's coming out with isn't that helpful.
No, and you're right. Like sales and marketing, like how many times do we see it in life where there's someone has the sales and marketing on point, and then you buy the product, and you're like, that was shit. That was really underwhelming. And you're right. Like I see it all the time. I see all the influencers, and I watch your videos on TikTok, and like they're bang on. They really are, and I can see why you've had so much success with it, because you're sort of cutting out all the noise, because there's so much crap that's said out there in the fitness world, isn't there? Like get lean in 4 weeks. I mean, I've been trying for the last year and a half, and I've been pretty determined. Like I run 4 or 5 times a week, and have done for the last year and a half. I weightlift, and I'm still like shredding at the moment. I wasn't obese, but I probably was obese on the charts. But it does. No one gets lean in 4 weeks unless you've already got a build right.
Yeah, I think that's definitely it. But I think, the industry is kind of selling the quick fix, and most people want the quick fix. If you say to someone, you've been out of shape for 5 years, it's going to take you 2.5 years to get back to good shape. No one's going to buy that, if that makes sense. So it's a real hard sell that way.
It is a hard sell, because you're right. You can't just go, by the way, come with me, and in 2 years' time, you'll be lean. And someone's going to go, well, actually, I'll go with that guy who has got really good marketing and tells me you can do it in 4 weeks. So it's that I can see how that's tough. I can definitely see how that's tough. So tell me, you've been a PT, you're sleeping at work and stuff. What was the point when you went, actually, like, I want to do something slightly different?
I think I always had in my mind that I wanted to have my own business. So I went from a PT to a strength coach because I did lots of different courses, and I was trying to figure out what's the most efficient way to get the result for my clients. But the environment I was in was very toxic, and the hours were just insane. And I used to say to my clients back then, okay, I'm going to have this studio. I'm going to have this studio. I was putting the message out into the universe so that, people would ask me, okay, what's going on with the studio? And, it took me about 4 years, I think, to build up enough capital to be able to do that. And, I found a space that's actually very close to the original gym that I was working in. But, I'm not a very good person when it comes to being told what to do. I always joke that I'm unemployable. If if I wasn't an entrepreneur, I don't know what I would do. Like the biggest fear I have is to have to go back to work for someone. So it was a very natural progression that I would try and find my own niche and then build my own business from there.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So why strength? Why is strength important to you?
It's not really important to me, should I say? I think it's important to.
Or important, yeah, in general, like why is strength important?
I think you could say it's important because it's how we interact with our environment. If you're a dad, you use such as strength to pick up your kids. If you are a sports player, you need strength to be able to hit the ball hard. If you're an older person, you need strength to be able to walk up the stairs. Like every aspect of how we interact with the world requires us to be strong. And unfortunately, as we age, we start to lose that. The big difference between a young person and an old person is purely strength. I mean, there's a few wrinkles and stuff and white hair, but an older person, if you look at them, what are they doing? They're moving slowly. They're struggling to even like bend down. They might have an issue getting in and out of the car. Those are all strength problems. They're not fitness problems. They're not particularly flexibility problems. And, if you don't want to lose your independence as you get older, you better make sure that you've got enough strength to carry you through until, the day you're no longer here.
Yeah. So important. So do you work on any cardio or anything like that?
I do a little bit of cardio. I mean, your cardiovascular system does get worked from lifting weights, but, it's slightly overblown, the cardiovascular side of things. It's quite easy to get fit. Like if you're a runner, I think you're doing you run at the moment. Going from nowhere to a 5K or to a 10K might take you a few months. Okay. And then you keep that fitness. But if you take a few months off, you go all the way back to zero. Like that's the hard thing. As soon as you take a bit of time off cardio, it's all gone and it's grueling to trying to get back up there. So I don't spend that much time on cardiovascular fitness because I could say to someone, okay, spend 4 weeks and their cardio could go from 0 to 90 quite quickly. But really, cardio helps if you're an overweight person and you're an older person and you're worried about your blood pressure, cholesterol, those type of things, cardiovascular fitness is definitely something to invest time in. But if you're an average guy at a normal weight, it's not really that important. Like your weight is a more important thing to look at than whether or not you can run a 5K. But I always say to people, you should be able to run a hard mile. If you can't run a mile at a good pace, you definitely need to go out and do some cardio. But I don't need you to be able to do a half marathon or a marathon. I just need you to be, when you need to move, you need to be able to move.
Yeah, no, amazing. So with strength, because a lot of people want to be big, a lot of people just want to be strong. Like for me, like I have no ambition to be big. That's why I'm probably doing a lot of running. But then recently I've been learning a lot about being strong, and you don't need to be big, be strong. Am I right in that, thinking that? Like, what's the difference between big and strength?
I mean, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's not like you put 50 kilos on your squat, you're going to get X amount bigger. It doesn't really work like that. You can be strong, but ultimately a side effect maybe of getting stronger is getting bigger muscles. I think where people get confused is like bodybuilders. And the goal of a bodybuilder is to get as big as possible despite how strong they are. So I would say they're like a Bugatti, but they've got the engine of like a toaster, if that makes sense. Yeah, it looks great, but can it run? Can it kick a ball fast? Can it move well? So that's where people get confused. They think about someone who's like a bodybuilder, when really, if you look at an athlete, a rugby player, um, you know, uh, a golfer, a tennis player, all those people have a level of strength, but they're not overly muscular. They can really hit the ball or kick the ball or, run at a pace. And, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for more performance side rather than how beautiful you look. Although, you will look better if you're stronger.
Yeah, I know, I agree with that for sure. And how do you motivate your clients? Because I think that's half of the challenge for me is the motivation. Like I've been trying to get fit since I was probably 23, 24. I never, for me, the way I look has never been a big enough driver to keep me going to the gym week in, week out. Because that's what I always attach it to. I'll go to the gym to look good. Like now I'm attaching it to my health and longevity because I'm 39 years old and I'm now going, okay, like I've got 2 young children, plus it helps me with all my business and everything else that I do. It helps regulate me back down to a place of good mental strength. How do you find, because I suppose half your challenge is when you have somebody in is one, them turning up each week, but them consistently turning up, because it's not like, as you say, you do a couple of squats and suddenly you're fit. It takes a long time. First question, actually, how long do you think for a standard person who's not really gymmed much their whole life would take from standing start to being in a not peak physical performance, but a good strength? When do you see the gains, and how long do you think it usually takes?
It really depends on where you're starting from.
Yeah, it's a bit of a string sort of question, isn't it? But like a target, like what would you be targeting? 9, 12 months to get in a good place?
As I said, if I'm working with someone who's over 50, it really depends. If you haven't been to the gym for 20, 30 years, or you never done anything for some time, it can make a big impact on where you are. So some people, for example, you're spending months on just like posture, structure, core strength, um, you know, um, things that will stop them from hurting themselves when they're just doing normal activities. Some people who, they might have been a lifetime athlete, they can zoom up. But, you can see significant changes in 6 months, really. It just depends on where you're starting from.
Yeah. Because everyone's different. Yeah, and so how do you keep people motivated? How do you keep people in the game without tailing off?
Okay, I think it's a great question, and I'm going to give a bit of a shock answer. I don't motivate people. That's not my job. Okay, the same way, you might be on a business course or whatever. I'm on a few business courses. They don't call me up and motivate me. I've got to do that myself. Because with my clients, they're at home sitting on the sofa, there's a bag of crisps there. I can't do anything. I'm not there. I don't have like a GPS tracking on them that, when they reach for the packet, I give them a call and say, yeah, or like they get like a zap. I can't do that. You have to have self-motivation. And a problem in my industry is that people will pay money thinking that as long as they pay money, they're going to get a result. But you have to want to do it yourself. That's the important thing. If you don't want to do it, you're just like, oh, well, if I pay some money, then I'm going to get fit. but I'm still going to, eat the crap and drink whatever, you can't get there. So the person has to be self-motivated. It's not the coach's job. If I'm in the session with someone, let's say you and me are working together for an hour, yeah, I'm going to motivate you through that because I'm going to see that sometimes you're tired, sometimes you're a bit worried, sometimes you're anxious, whatever it is. My job for that hour is to make sure that you get done what needs to be done in that hour. But outside of that, that's your job to make sure that you hold up the other side of the bargain. So I think that's the first thing. Um,
It's a great answer, and I'll just add on to that because it just made me think slightly. Like I mentor people, and my message is I help tree surgeons have more time and make more profit. And sometimes that messaging sits home so much that I get a lot of people moving towards me. But then, very similar, I can't motivate them when they're. I can be with them for an hour. I can show them the blueprint and guide them to the things they need to do to have a successful business. But I'm not going to be there for the other hours of the week, and I get people who go, okay, well I bought your mastermind and now I don't have more time and more profit, and I'm like, okay, yeah, but have you done ABCD? Oh no, no, no. And it's that whole thing, isn't it, of staying in the game and that motivation that yes, you can spend an hour with somebody, but they're gonna have to turn up for the rest of the time. They're gonna have to build their resilience and be motivated themselves.
yeah, and I think the other side of motivation is you need to understand your own motivation. So for you, you're talking about your kids, or your motivation might be the fact that you one day want to be able to play with grandkids, or it might be that you want to still be able to beat. And if you've got a son, I don't know, your son at football
Yeah,
for
I
the
have.
next few
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
For example, you want to make sure that he doesn't take you over as the man of the house, if that makes sense. So some of the motivation is understanding what you want your future to be, and understanding what you don't want your future to be. And it's not really about you liking it or wanting to do it, really. We all do things that we don't like doing or don't really want to do. I take out the bins. I'm not super motivated about taking the bins out. I wake up early in the morning to go to work. Sometimes I'm not super motivated to do that. But I understand what the consequences are if I don't do those things. And that's really what health and fitness is about. It's about understanding the things you don't want to happen to you and understanding how you want to live, you know, the future, how you want to live going forward. So you have to really be understanding of have life goals and understand how your health and fitness falls into them. Because once your health is taken away, you don't have anything. You all resources go to that point. If I were to get, heaven forbid, cancer or something, everything goes to that. My money, my time, my family's time, maybe my family's money, everything goes to that. Everything has to stop. So I've got to think, okay, what do I need to do so that isn't my future, or that's not likely to be my future? And that's how we need to think about it. And I think, when you're younger, you're more thinking about, girls or guys, six pack abs, being lean, playing sport, whatever it is. But as you get older, you really have to think about what you want those next, let's say, those 30 years after 50 to be like. If you spent 40 years building up a pension and you're thinking you're going to go on cruises, you're going to play golf and all these different things, but you haven't invested anything in your health, that money's going to go to a private nurse, to some housing where you're being supported, or medication, whatever that is. So the motivation really needs to be within you, and that comes from understanding what you want your future and your life to be like going forward.
Yeah, no, and that really resonates and hit home, because how many people you hear it all the time that they get to retirement and then they just gone, or illness or whatever, and they've worked all their life to have this dream thing and they've not worked on themselves. And people go to work and they work on their job or they work on their business, but they forget to work on themselves. And that's the most important person. It's the most important building you can build. It's the most important thing you can go to work on is yourself, is your mind, your physical body, right?
Yeah, ill health doesn't book a convenient time in your calendar. It's going to come when stress is at its highest, or you're worrying about the money, or trying to do this deal. Suddenly it just pops up, and then you just got to deal with that point. So I always say, is prevention is what I do. When you see the doctor, it's too late. We're in the hospital under the knife, it's too late. I'm this person that stops you from getting to that point. So that's the important thing. It's the prevention rather than going for the cure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It does make a lot of sense. And what part does diet play in all of this?
Oh, a huge part, a huge part. Are you talking in general, guys over 50, or both?
Just in general, both for general fitness, because I know like some people will like, I see videos all the time of like, we'll show you a fitness routine and then you can just eat what you want. And I just look at that and think, what? But if you stick to your calories each day, you can go and eat two pizzas if that's 2,000 calories or whatever you've decided. Like, I see a lot of this stuff that sells the benefits of being fit but still being able to eat crap. How does that play into it for you?
It's a very good question. I think that, especially when you're younger, you can get away with a lot of things, especially with your diet. You know, people have lots of beers, have lots of pizzas, baked beans on toast, all the rest when they're younger. You know, they don't see any effect on their body. But as you get older, you know, you can't really live that same lifestyle with your food, because as you get older, your food is kind of like health. You know, if you eat too many carbohydrates, there is a problem of, or chance of diabetes. If you eat too many trans fats, there's a problem of heart disease. Well, you don't have those problems when you're younger. So I think that people fixate very much on the number on the scales in terms of weight loss. And if you only fixate on the weight loss, then yeah, you can kind of eat what you want as long as you're in a calorie deficit. But, you know, will you have good energy levels? Will you have good skin? Will you have, you know, constantly be ill? Will you have good muscle definition? All those different things you won't have if you don't eat the right food. And people always fixate, my industry fixates about, okay, he dropped 10 kilos, let's say, but how does he feel now he's lost 10 kilos? Does he feel like he's got energy? Does he feel like he's got mental clarity? You know, does he have, you know, has he got like some skin condition or something along those lines? You've got to be focusing on the health side of food, the nutrition side of food, rather than just the calorie number. And especially if I work with an older person, my goal generally is to get them to eat more food, more veg, more fruit, more good sources of protein, not less of a bad diet, if that makes sense. And that's where people get a problem. They're still eating bad food, but they're trying to eat less of it. And that can cause other health problems going forward.
Yeah, yeah, no, completely agree with that. And what's your view on things like Huel and like meal replacements and supplements and things like that? Because you talked about getting the right proteins and the right food in. Like, is there a place between eating healthy, so having, you know, the right balanced diet, and then adding in supplements and protein and things like that from shakes and meal replacements and things like that?
I mean, the question is quite broad because like supplements and fuel are, you know, it's like a very broad thing.
Okay. All right. Let me ask in a really specific way, because I'm very selfish on this podcast. I have a lot of Huel in my diet. So is that a good thing? So I have, like today, I fasted till about 11. Then I've had two meal replacement Huel shakes, but then I'll have a proper dinner at dinner time. Like, is that a right balance, or do you think there's too much? Because sometimes I'll have Huel all day, and that's pretty much all I'll eat in a day, apart from some fruit. So, selfish question, more direct.
Okay, so unfortunately, Huel is junk. Okay, so you know it's just processed. It's made from good stuff, but it's just processed gunk. You know, it's not. You know, it's not going to be giving you the same nutrient profile as having real food. You know, it's like eating a pot noodle. You know, it's got some protein in there, it's got some soy in there, it's got some peas in there, and a bit of carbohydrate. But I wouldn't be eating 3 pot noodles a day. Like, there isn't, unfortunately, a substitute for actual real food, like a piece of chicken or a piece of beetroot or whatever it is. Unfortunately, generally, convenience food isn't great for us. It's not nutritious. So I probably wouldn't go for that type of very quick fix thing. And also, unfortunately, if you want to be healthy, convenience, you have to get rid of convenience. It's not convenient to be healthy. It's not. You have to, you know, getting up in the morning and going for a run is not convenient. Okay, cooking food is not convenient. But if you try and hold on to the bad, unhealthy habits of convenience, then they will seep into other parts of your fitness journey. And unfortunately, Huel is kind of trying to sell something to people think, because I've had lots of clients who ask similar questions, and they come in with like these Huel shakers, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing with that Huel shaker? And like, oh, but it's like super convenient. It's made out of like peas and all that sort of crap. And I'm like, yeah, it's gone from like a pea, like heavily manufactured, heavily processed, into this goop that now you're trying to think is better than a meal. But unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Sorry,
uh,
probably not the answer that he wanted to hear.
no, but it is the answer I want to hear because I've had this feeling like, when something feels too good to be true and you're like, this feels because it's convenient. Like my life is so busy and it's convenience. It's exactly what you just said is my life. Like I'm doing it out of convenience because otherwise I end up just eating like stuff that is quick and then that is shit. So I've been telling myself that, oh, this Huel stuff, like it's brilliant, it's convenient, it's easy. Like I'm eating a really balanced diet. But like I had this feeling when I asked that question, I had a feeling that you'd give an answer like that. So I'm taking it on board. I'm taking it on board.
But I will say, to be fair, and this is where my industry sometimes goes wrong, is, it's a step in the right direction. It is probably better than the Tesco meal deal. So the Huel is a step from there. But and the reality, is it really doing much for your health? Is it really doing much for your energy levels? Is it really doing much for your hormone profile? Is it doing well, well for your gut microbiome, those type of things? The answer is no. And the way you can tell is, like, how different does the food look to how it would be in nature? You know, does when you put water in your Huel, does it look like, I don't know what it is, peas and chickpeas or whatever it is, or does it look like some sort of slop?
Sludge,
Yeah,
sludge
do you
we
see what I
call
mean?
it. So yeah,
So that's
definitely.
the
Yeah.
real way you can tell if it's, a worthwhile nutritional investment.
And I think you're right because my middle ground is that I go away twice a month for about 3 or 4 days, and usually when I go away, I'd eat out every evening, and that usually entails being in a pub, eating not great food, making bad food choices because it's evening. So when I have some Huel in the evening, and I stay in my hotel room, and I don't put myself in a position where I'm going to walk past a McDonald's, a KFC, or a pub, or something that's going to end up taking me, and I'm going to make a bad food choice. So it does kind of work in that middle ground. But I think what I've done is I've taken it one
Yeah,
step too far.
you're taking it to an extreme.
And now I'm having it all the time, not just when I'm away. So this podcast is a really selfish thing for me. I get to put it out to the world. I get to ask great questions, and I get to ask lots of selfish stuff. So I'm like, this is amazing for me too. So, and I'm sure there'll be people listening going, oh yeah, I'm doing, because I know Huel's like gone off, and I see it everywhere. Like everyone wants this convenient because we live in this Western fast-paced world where no one has any time, like you said, and everyone's got like time poor. They want the quick fix. They want to be healthy and fit, but also they want to that they need to get their calories in. So moving forward from diet, well, firstly, tell me, what does your diet on a daily basis look like, roughly?
I get asked this question quite a lot. Um, Monday to Friday, I'm pretty much eating the same thing. I have the same breakfast, the same lunch, the same dinner. So, breakfast, for example, is like a 3 eggs, some oats, some berries. I kind of make it into like this weird like omelette type thing, and I eat that. And then I'll have some boiled eggs maybe later in the day potentially. Then I'll have 4 chicken thighs. Then I'll have a fruit salad, and then dinner I have, it might be like spaghetti. It's just a bit more free flowing, this the dinner. But I try and have a steak once a week, a piece of salmon once a week, like a piece of fish once a week, um, and then whatever I want throughout the rest of those times. But the reality is that the trick is, people who have the ideal body composition eat the same things. Like, it sounds very boring, but the people I always work with who like variety in their food always have a problem with their weight. You have to have 3 or 4 breakfasts that you're happy to rotate through, 3 or 4 lunches, 3 or 4 dinners, and then, if you go out for a meal with a wife, or you go, it's your kid's birthday, whatever it is, then you allow yourself variety and maybe a little more flavor, whatever that is. But most of the time, your food is fuel. Like, if you're at work, do you really need to be entertained by the food that you're eating? You're probably rushing around. You need to get the food in, and you go back to the meeting or whatever it is. So during the week, it should be particularly strict. And on the weekend, you give yourself a little bit more leeway, but it's not so much leeway that you undo everything that you did in the week, if weight loss is your issue. But consistency of diet is one of the hardest things that people need to get their head around.
Yeah, and you're right because you said, oh, it might be a bit boring, but I actually think that it's not boring. Like it's discipline. Like when I see someone like yourself who's lean, strong, I think this guy is disciplined. He knows how to turn up every day, and even on the days where he's feeling like he wants to wane, that he's disciplined. And it's the same when I see a successful business owner who's created a very successful business. You know that they've been disciplined. And I think that's where my correlation between fitness and business comes in, is that you've got to be disciplined to do the boring, as you say, the boring stuff, like the boring stuff in business. Like, people get excited about the new shiny thing, or the new shiny diet, or the new shiny bit of kit in the gym, but it's the people that turn up day in, day out, and they're disciplined. And I think that is for me, like, and I'm not even at that point of huge success in both areas, but like, the more I see it, and the more I see people like yourself, when you say that boring bit, that boring bit's the discipline, because people get excited by stuff, and they see everything as shiny, and actually it's the disciplined people that turn up every day and have that, as you say, the same diet, the same thing. They're not getting excited about the new menu at somewhere, or the new this and the new that, the new thing. So yeah, I think there's a definite correlation there.
Because, people sometimes ask me, Sal, do like a video of your day or your morning routine or you making food. And I'm like, it's just the same thing day in, day out. It's the unsexy stuff that gets you where you want to be. Do you know what I mean? It's me, having another bit of chicken, or me chopping up some veg or something along those lines. It's not me making these beautiful, nutritious gourmet meals. It's just, I know that I need, for more vitamin C, so I'm going to have a couple of oranges or whatever it is. But it's the stuff that people don't see that really gets you the results. And with social media, it's all about the person in the gym, doing crunches or doing all this fantastic stuff. But that's all the bullshit, because you don't do that. And, sometimes people ask me also to like video on live stream things like my workouts. I'm like, well, they're kind of boring, but also I need to be concentrating on focusing what I'm doing. If I'm really working on what I'm doing, I don't have time to chat with you between the sets and entertain you and answer your questions and then go back. It's just, I'm doing the same squats again. I'm doing the same deadlifts again. I'm doing the same bang, bang, week in, week out. So it's, you're right. It's about the stuff that people don't see, and the consistency that really gets you on where you need to be.
Yeah, consistency, persistently consistent, and discipline on a daily basis. So what would you say if you were going to give advice? And this is really general, so you might not be able to go there. But like, 3 exercises that, if you only had 3 exercises to do every day for the rest of your life, what 3 exercises would they be to keep your body strong?
That's quite an easy question in many ways. So the first would be a squat. The first would be a squat, like a barbell squat generally. Okay, because ultimately our legs are the first things to go as men. Balance, walking up the stairs, running. Those are the things that people really struggle with as they get older. So the squat is very, very important. The next would be the deadlift. Okay, although people sort of like get a bit afraid of that lift, but there's no better exercise for strengthening your back. And if you've known anyone who's had a bad episode with their back or had one themselves, you do need to strengthen your back so it doesn't go. It doesn't go. Because once it goes, it's kind of a repeat thing and it gets a bit worse over time. So the deadlift is a very, very important exercise for strengthening your spine, as long as it's done correctly. And then the third, that's a bit tougher one. Maybe I would say, I'd probably have to say the bench press. Not because of how it makes you look, but because we are creatures with our eyes at the front of our body. And so everything we do requires these muscles at the front. So whether or not you're picking up your kids, or you're throwing a ball for your dog, or you're writing on a piece of paper, all these muscles are strengthened and used with the bench press. So it's a very important exercise to make sure that you still have, your ability to move around and interact with the world with the bench press.
Yeah, and the best bench press feels the best. Like, I don't know, there's something about bench press that's like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, they do. I love it. Look, when I've got chest day, I'm like, yes. When I've got leg day, I'm like, but like, it's the one, you're right though, the leg day is the one that I avoid the most, but it's the one that when I do it, and I'm doing it more and more because I'm running, is helping everything become strong. And even I've seen with me running, my knees have been getting slowly weaker, and then I've added in, because I wasn't doing any leg exercise, I was just running. Now I've added in leg exercise, doing squats, doing deadlifts and things like that. My knees and legs are getting stronger, and my knees are actually feel weaker in the roundabout way. I was thinking, when my knees feel weaker, the last thing I want to do is do leg exercises, but actually, like, which seems completely counterintuitive, but like it literally does. So yeah, 3 great exercises. I mean, I've got to do squats today. Actually, I've got to do squats in a minute when I go to the gym. So it makes me feel good now to know that that's what you said. So your videos on TikTok are really, really good. How did you come about doing that? Is that something that you just started doing, or did you have some training on it? Because you've created quite a big following, and they're really to the point, really quick, really short, really snappy. Did you start doing them, or how did that come about?
I think some of it sort of it gels with my personality because I'm quite that way. I don't like spending too many words on things that I don't need to, if that makes sense. So no, I just put it out there. Really, I said to myself, I set myself a challenge of posting every single day for a year. That was the challenge I did. No matter how bad or how good I thought the video was, I was going to post it and put it out there. And when I started doing it, it was like, oh, no one was watching it, no one was watching it. And then suddenly, I can't remember the name of the video, just like blew up. And I was like, oh, okay, well, some people are watching it. And, if I can do one right, I can do a few more right. So I kept with it saying, okay, every single day, because, every day you get a little bit better. So I managed to do a whole year. And then I started adding some lives in. Like I do a live every day now as well. And that helped as well with how I present myself, how I speak to people. And then I began to sort of understand, having a look at the videos, what people were interested in. And when people picked up the phone or they made an inquiry, what they wanted to know from me or what they thought I was the expert in, if that makes sense. Because I was putting a message out there in terms of just general health for guys in their 50s, thinking that most people in their 50s aren't that interested in getting stronger. But every time someone picked up the phone, they were like, I am interested about, not getting particularly muscular, but making sure that I can keep up with my grandkids, or, I'm no sense slowing it down, or I'm getting flabby, or whatever that is. So I was like, okay, well, if people are noticing me for those videos, I'm going to do more of those videos. And that's how I've slowly started to build it up. It's a little bit hit and miss sometimes, but I've kind of found my voice having done nearly 400 videos now, I guess.
Absolutely love that, because you've just shown again the discipline. A lot of people would say, I'm going to go and do a video every single day, and they might do it for a week, 3 weeks, 3 months, but you did it for a whole year, and then you saw the compound of that, of people continuously seeing you. But not only that, like this is where fail forward comes into play. Like you knew when you on day one that your the first video won't be as good as number 400, and you're progressively just improving incrementally every day. But the only way you're going to do that is by going out, trying and doing. And so many people get caught up with like, oh, I might put a video out tomorrow and I might do this, but like actually just going out and doing it and going, sod it, like I'm just going to go and do this, I'm going to post it out every day. I mean, credit to you, because that's given you the results that you've had from the views you've got on your videos.
Yeah, I think some of it at the beginning, I'd post it and try not to watch it again because it was so cringeworthy. And I'm now sorry, able to listen to my own voice and watch myself on a screen, which took a very, very long time for me to be able to do. It just feels awkward and it feels bad. And it's like, that's not my voice. That's the one that really sort of used to get to me. But I think, with a business, any business, you can have the best business in the world, but if no one knows anything about it, it's never going to get anywhere. And, I've to my own horn, I've been very good at what I've done, but for many years, nobody really knew how to get hold of me or what my message was or, what I stood for. So, you have to make that leap. You have to do something. Otherwise, you go backwards, if that makes sense. And the same with fitness. You have to do something or you decline. And I was like, okay, well, this is really challenging for me. It's something that I've avoided trying to do. It's something that, you do get judged for massively. Like when you start I've got to a level now where I start getting haters or people say rude stuff to you. Or people, the other day, although it's a very lovely thing, someone made like not a fake account, but it's like the Sal Kassam fan page. and I can't figure out of my regular viewers who it is, but you get weird things like that you wouldn't expect. The other day I was out on the weekend and some guy came up to me and said, oh, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. I saw you from the videos. And that's a weird thing as well. But it's good because, as I said, for something that you kind of knew you were very, very bad at. I'm not saying I'm brilliant right now, but, just a little bit just a little bit each day, getting a little bit better, and then you get that instant feedback, which is quite a positive thing.
Oh, it's huge. And you think like someone like Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, he's been like top podcast in the world right now. He's if you listen to his first couple of episodes, they're not great, but he just went out and did it. And it's that whole like improving. And I'm with you. Like when I first started this podcast a year and a half ago, I told myself that I'm going to listen to every single episode. And I have done, but it still find it really difficult to listen to my own voice and watch myself. I don't know what it is about that, but I know that if I carry on doing this for the next 5 years, then in 5 years' time, it's going to be even better. And 5 years' time on top of that, and the compound and compound and compound thereafter. So yeah, absolutely, absolutely love that. And that's absolute gold. So we're just starting to come towards the end of this podcast. It's been brilliant. And I've been very selfish, asked some very selfish questions, but I'm sure like our audience will get some value from it. So what would you say to somebody right now, not 50, just through their life, who might be a bit overweight, they're frustrated, they are in a place where they've tried different fitnesses, tried different diets. They keep going and doing it for a little bit, jumping back off, on, off, on, off. What bit of advice would you give someone just to go out and start getting fit? Like, what would you say?
This isn't a plug, but I think that you need to get a coach. If you want to be good at anything, you need to invest in it. There's no two ways around it. Like if you have to understand yourself. If you are someone who can't self-motivate, if you're someone who's easily put off, if you're someone who struggles to even do some of the exercises or understand what they need to do, you have to pay an expert. And sometimes expensive, sometimes it isn't, but that expert should have been in your place and understand all the pitfalls between where you are and where you want to be. The problem is, if you do it yourself, is you don't know what you don't know. And time is the currency of life. And you can pay someone to put you years ahead of where you could have been yourself. And if you are frustrated, it's probably been some time, maybe 5 years that you've been struggling with your weight or whatever health problem you have. Why not employ someone to reverse all of that, like quicker than you could do it yourself, or maybe even you couldn't do it yourself? So I always think that there is a place to invest in yourself, in a good coach, obviously, not just something you find off the internet. But people, even my industry, I invest in a course on sales or in a course on marketing or whatever it is, and it's never a bad investment as long as you do research into the person that you are trying to work with. So I'd say if you're stuck in a loop, employ someone to help you.
Yeah. Do you know what? I absolutely love that. And I know you said it wasn't a plug, but you're right, because I talk about this in the sense of business mentorship, training, self-development. Like if you want to go and do something, find a coach. If you want to go and be successful, find someone that's walked the path that you want to go on, because it will hack your life by years, because they will show you all of everyone's looking for the next hack or shortcut. Like the hack or shortcut isn't like Huel or like doing something for a couple of months. It's going who's done what I want to do, or who's doing what I want to do, and who can help me along that journey. And I think so many people will spend loads of money on going to uni or going on doing lots of detrimental things in their life, but they're not going, okay, so if I want to get fit, what do I need? Who can help guide me? So you're so right in what you say there. If someone did want to work with you, how's the best place to get hold of you?
Well, through my social media. So my TikTok, my Instagram is at redpillfit, or my website is redpillfit.co.uk. So through any of those channels is the best way to get in contact with me.
Amazing. If you send me the links, I'll put them in the bio, and then people will be able to get hold of you. I'd certainly say meeting you in person, because we can only see your head and your shoulders. You are lean, ripped, whatever you want to call it. And that's what I'd be looking for in a personal trainer. Like, I've known personal trainers before who have been overweight, and I think, well, if they can't do it, they're not going to be able to show me. So you are a walking, talking billboard for your own company. So absolutely love that. Thanks so much for coming on today, Sal. Have you got any final words?
Just thank you very much for inviting me on this podcast. That's all.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on. And if you've really enjoyed this episode, please get in contact with Sal, follow him on all his social medias, and please share, like, and subscribe to Fail Forward. Thanks all for listening. See you soon.